Thank you, Mr. Burke Riddell. Uh, it is sincerely an honor to be here tonight. I want to say a special thank you to the Lewis family. And I want to start out by thanking the mother of Reginald F. Lewis, because without her, none of us would be here tonight. So thank you very much for bringing me into this world. And I want to add to that his brother, Antonio, and his daughter, Christina, and Lloyd happens to be a friend of mine, and so is Leslie. And their entire Lewis family is a very wonderful family. I've met them all, and they're spiritually based, which makes them very successful in life, no matter what. So let's give them a round of applause. As I was sitting there, I said, oh, I'm supposed to write a speech. Okay, so before I start, I want to just tell you a little story. This little girl grew up down south in Lancaster, South Carolina, to an integrated family. Her mother was Caucasian and her father was African American. I'm talking about me. My mother was a cook and a domestic, and my father was a janitor at Springs Cotton Mill. Nowadays, I think you got this fancy title, something engineer, what is it, mechanic, something, whatever. He was a janitor. And he used to take me to work with him at Springs Cotton Mill that makes the linens. And there was a huge buffer machine. I don't know if you've ever seen an industrial buffer machine, but it's like half the size of that table. And he used to have to take it up and down the hall. It waxed the hall every evening. So because my father worked 3 jobs to put 5 kids through law school and graduate school and every other school you could possibly think of, he had very little time to spend with his children. So he would take me to work, and that was our time together. So he would sit me on the buffer machine as we went up and down the hallway, and he would say, you know, when you grow up, you don't have to do this. But if you choose to do this, be the best janitor you can be. Clean those toilets and clean that sink and just do it absolutely the best that you can. But you can be anything you want to be. And he said, and that's what I'm saying to you, chosen one. So my nickname growing up was the chosen one. I was the baby in the family. And so, and my mother, she was a fantastic cook. I can cook like her now, thank you, if you want to visit my house. And she basically taught me everything that I needed to know in life about embracing human kindness. And they both taught me about spirituality. So if you start with a spiritual base, and then you mix that with competence and determination, and then you topple that with contagious enthusiasm for what you do. And then on top of that, you put a little bit of icing, and that icing is the Reggie Lewis. Never stop going, never give up. Keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. Because I thought, just instead of doing PR and strategic marketing and advertising, if I was going to be successful, I had to add a new element to it, which is technology. Because without integrated and interactive technology and texting and all those Blueberry and Blackberry things Burke talked about, then you can't make money, make revenue. You can't increase revenue for businesses. So what I did too is I looked back over my database, and this is God's truth. I had over 60,000 names in my personal database. And then I hit over 2.3 million of Google people visiting my website. So I took it down because it was too much. Because they would call all the time, but anyway, I'll say that later. But anyway, so, and then the list goes on. And then I started taking self-inventory. And I was like, okay, have you lived a good life? Have you lived a good life? Have you done the right thing by people? And then I started thinking about all the people that I consider mentors. I never met Reginald F. Lewis, but I've always admired the way he did business and the way he treated his family. So he was one of my mentors. And then my mother and father passed. They were always my mentors. So I took self-inventory and I said, okay, let's make a list of priorities. And I did the old-fashioned way. I didn't put it in the computer, I didn't text it, I wrote it down. And I took it and I put it on my bathroom mirror. And I said point of entrance is you think you've accomplished so much. You're a big-time executive. You make a bunch of money and you have bought a lot of stuff. What did you do? What did you do in your mind that was the right thing to do for your family and for your friends? And then I checked that off. I did the right thing. Then I said, okay, what have you done to pass it on? Pass it forward. And then I thought about it, and I started listing everybody I mentored, which happened to be over 87 kids. I don't have any kids, but I feel like I've been a mother to many. So I started looking at that, and I said, okay, that's good. Check it off. But what people didn't realize, once I checked it off, I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, Miata runs her own business. I got Christian, who runs her own business. I have, and I'm just going to name a few of them. Dana, who's now the top executive for a global marketing firm. I got Carrie, who's a top executive for an advertising firm. I got Jonathan now, who's a top executive with a soft drink company. And then I started thinking about it. So really, in helping other people, what did I do? I formed a support system. So a lot of my contracts came from the very people that I mentored. And I had no idea that was going to happen. I was just doing it from what Reginald Lewis did all his life, from the heart. So I call it the, and I wrote it down, I call it the HSSS. From the heart, the soul, substance, and success. So I'd say to you, there is a place for each of us. There is a time for each of us to reach back and help somebody who's less fortunate than us. I had parents who laid the foundation for me. It didn't matter that my father had a second grade education. It didn't matter that my mother had a seventh grade education. They had common sense. They had a PhD in common sense. And they had a PhD in heart. And it was so important that they established in me what I needed to survive and succeed. And so I ask each of you, look around the table when you go home, think about your family, think about your friends, think about on your job. What have you done to give back to somebody without expecting anything, unconditionally? Because Reggie Lewis did that. And God always did it. So we all need to set a pattern for it. And then I looked at JR, and I want to say thank you to JR Rockefeller for putting this all together. He's a good maker. And it was interesting because I did that 2 years ago, and JR came to me, I was like, oh God, another person, one my help, Lord have mercy. Okay. And then after you started talking, I was like, oh, that's great. You should do that. You should contact this person and that person. And I thought, that didn't take a lot for me, you know. And then he started calling all the time, but that's all right. But it didn't take a lot just to give a little help. The other thing, and I'm going to wrap this up, but I think it's important to note certain things. The other thing that I just wanted to share with you is that the sponsors that have sponsored this tonight, every sponsor on the front cover of that program deserves your attention, they deserve your patronage, they deserve your respect. Because we go through life and we just go through life. And we just start being, as consumers, we buy and buy and buy. We need to stop and be thinking buyers and patronize those who patronize us. So I'm saying that the next time you go to another event, check out your sponsors. And the next time you're in the grocery store or you're in Macy's or you're online, think about that sponsor and patronize. And then in closing, I just want to point out a couple of other things. And if I don't say this, Diane, Barbara, Eldridge Jr., and my mother and father, I owe my life to them because they instilled something in me that no one can take away from me. That is my self-confidence and self-respect. And I don't care how many times I fall, because I fell a lot. I always knew I could rise because I had them at my back, pushing me up, and they were the wind beneath my wings.